going to sound really cringy when I say this, but I'm going to cut to the chase. We have a severe weather outbreak ongoing across portions of the plains right now, and it looks like it's going to be a multi-day severe weather event out there. That low pressure system will also make its way into the Great Lakes region, bringing thunderstorms, in which some of those storms could be severe for some locations in our area. In this video, I'm going to talk about the locations that could see severe weather, what potential days we could see severe weather, and then also the timing and ingredients with regards to this setup. Here. Oh, that is a tornado. Hello everybody, it is 7:05 p.m. and it is April 25th. Welcome to another update from Great Lakes Weather. Hopefully you all are doing well. This is a video of a rotating supercell I intercepted in portions of Schoolcraft, Michigan a few years ago, as a matter of fact, at this point. You can kind of see some rising scud at the base there. We're going to see some storms like this probably on Saturday and on Sunday across portions of the Great Lakes region. I do see some tornado potential with the setup, especially across portions of southern Wisconsin, Illinois, and also even getting up towards northern Michigan, places such as Gaylord on Saturday, and then also the potential for maybe even some rotating storms on Sunday. So there's a lot to talk about with regards to this upcoming setup that we have for severe weather across portions of the Great Lakes region. Might be a longer video as we break down the different ingredients that are coming our way, but let's get right to it. Let's first talk about the plains. Severe weather outbreak is ongoing across portions of Kansas at this current moment. You see it kind of a enhanced risk in two different spots across the plains. Higher tornado potential placed across portions of western Kansas. There are several severe thunderstorm warnings out on that storm right now, or on that series of storms. You will notice that over the course of the next couple of outlooks, you're going to see that the plains are kind of under the gun over a few days. Okay, this slow-moving low-pressure system is likely going to bring severe weather to different parts of the plains over the next couple of days. So this is on Friday. You can see that the enhanced risk moves a little bit further to the east and focuses more towards different places such as Iowa, northwest Missouri, eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas, and then also western Missouri is included in that as well. And then portions of the Great Lakes region such as southwestern Wisconsin and western Illinois are under a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms. So again, the main threat of those storms will shift a little bit further off to the west of our region during that time frame. And then the day 3 outlook is the one I want to focus on quite a bit in this video. You do notice that there's an enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms really focused across portions of Oklahoma and Kansas and then portions of Missouri, but there's a broad slight risk that shoots right up into portions of Illinois, Wisconsin, and northern lower Michigan. This area right here, I am seeing some potential for a tornado or two in some of those different locations there. You're going to have a kind of a short wave kind of making its way through that region, and you could have some storms riding along the frontal boundary that will be associated with that. So that is something that we're going to be watching out for a little carefully with this system as it makes its way further to the east. So again, marginal risk for severe thunderstorms does go down into lower Michigan as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see this shift in the next couple of updates, especially with the latest models that are coming out and the 0Z models that will come out later on this evening. But again, this is the day 3 outlook. This is for Saturday afternoon into Saturday night. We will also talk about a little bit about this setup across portions of western Illinois, southwest Wisconsin. Now, I will say this setup could possibly come to fruition in this area, and I'm also watching potential for lower Michigan along the warm front to see potential for maybe a few severe thunderstorms, maybe the possibility of a tornado based on the latest models. So what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate those models, get an idea of what the raw model data is talking about, which is, of course, going to change. So don't take it directly at face value for sure. But we're going to kind of dive into some of the ingredients that will make this setup what it is. So we are going to use the RFSA. It is a prototype model, and we're just kind of looking at it, just to get an idea. It's done a relatively reasonable job on several setups over the past few months of severe weather season. So we're going to use the RFSA to kind of get an idea of how things could unfold, and then we'll also compare it to several different models, or the ingredients to several different models later on. So let's start with the RFS and get an idea of what it's showing in terms of convection. Okay, so we're looking at composite reflectivity, which is just showing the potential for some clusters of storms and the height of those storms in the atmosphere, and then also the updraft velocity greater than 75 meters per second. So that's kind of what we are looking at with this. So you could see Friday afternoon, you have rain showers making their way through Illinois and progressing towards Michigan. Those will start to fizzle out, and you'll have another wave of storms. So it's going to be a series of waves of storms as this slow-moving low-pressure system makes its way, and these storms will progress through the favorable environment and then start to dissipate. So that's kind of what is on the table with this. So you see that those storms start to fizzle out. Another wave of storms starts to take shape in portions of Iowa, Saturday evening into Saturday night. And then you do notice that there's convection firing across portions of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. That's going to be rather interesting to see how that unfolds, because if we get quite a bit of convection here, while that might I don't know how much that will hamper the overall environment for severe weather in the afternoon, but one thing that it will contribute to is a lessening of a capping inversion that might be present in the atmosphere during this storm setup. So that will have a key play in how this setup will unfold for places later on in the evening across Illinois and Michigan. How much convection will fire through here in the morning towards the midday time frame. So let's go forward. Right now, again, the convection moves out around as early as 9 a.m. on Saturday. So that's going to be moving out of the area. And again, the place I'm really focusing on are places that are going to be riding along this warm front, which looks to be positioned kind of in this region right here, across portions of northern Illinois, southwest Wisconsin, northern Michigan, based on the RFS model. And again, this is going to shift north or south over the next couple of runs, but just keep in mind that the general location of a warm front boundary that will fire, or a frontal boundary that will fire some storms, will likely be across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and portions of northern Michigan. So that frontal boundary is what we'll be watching, and you can kind of get a better idea of where it's at by around the 23Z run. Now, again, it's not showing much convection firing. Big deal is a capping inversion that is possibly going to be in the atmosphere. If you get a sounding in portions of lower Michigan, which again, not seeing as great of an environment for lift, actually doesn't really show at much convective inhibition at all there, but again, there's not too much lift to favor storm development out there. You get a sounding out here as we get closer to the afternoon hours. You notice that a capping inversion starts to take a little bit more shape as we get into later on in the evening. Get a sounding out here, and there you have a cap. A little bit of a cap in there, okay? So that capping inversion could impact the development of storms along the warm frontal boundary. If you go towards where the warm front's at across portions of Michigan, you see still a cap in the atmosphere. Now, if a storm can break through the capping inversion, it can make its way up into the atmosphere and possibly start to produce some severe weather. But there has to be a few storms that fire to break through that cap. Again, capping inversion, what that really means is that there is a location where convective inhibition exists. So like that usually is due to the fact that the air above the surface is actually a little bit warmer than the air at the ground, which really kind of kills the potential for storms to kind of take shape and take off. So the capping inversion, if that's present, will inhibit storms from developing in this area along the warm frontal boundary. You do notice that the RFS does initiate some convection across portions of Illinois. That could possibly occur, but again, the RFS model is just playing out based on a series of different algorithms. Once we get to the actual event, that's really what it's going to come down to in terms of looking at how the cap is going to inhibit storms, how much instability we have, how much helicity or spin we're going to have in the atmosphere. So that's going to be kind of the thing in question with regards to the storm setup that we come to Saturday evening. So again, you see that, interestingly enough, you also have some storm potential firing across portions of northern Michigan. So there could be some storms that fire up there, possibly produce some severe weather, but that will be later on in the evening hours into the overnight hours. We get a sounding out ahead of these storms that are currently firing north of Grand Rapids. Still have a sounding for Torrent, but a good capping inversion in the atmosphere still present based on this environment. Little bit of less cape, but very good storm relative helicity from the surface to 1 kilometer. Again, storm relative helicity is shown on this little portion of the sounding right here, but it basically measures the amount of spin that there is in the atmosphere. So if you have spin greater than 150, 200 across portions of, or across an area associated with the sounding, there is potential of a possible tornado with a storm that does fire in that environment. So again, that's if a storm does fire in that environment. That's the thing we're going to be dealing with. So questions still to be raised by a conditional setup along the warm front. I know there's quite a few chasers heading out towards the plains where there's very likely going to be quite a few tornadoes during this upcoming event. There's already been 3 reported based on what I saw today, but I'm probably going to stay in the Great Lakes region and kind of follow this frontal setup across portions of southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and central Michigan. That's kind of going to be my play. And we'll see if storms tend to fire in this region and see what takes shape, and we'll likely get on it just to make sure that this area also has a little bit of coverage with regards to these storms too. So again, let's take a look at some of the ingredients and compare some of the models with this setup. So these are based on the latest models that have come out. This is at 4 p.m. on Saturday. So this shows surface-based CAPE, which is a measure of instability in the atmosphere. It also takes into account the different moisture content, the amount of sunshine that we've had, which also contributes to heating at the surface. So there's several ingredients that come into play with in terms of CAPE, and you can see that there's a band of CAPE kind of settling along this frontal boundary here. CAPE values even getting out to 4,000 across portions of Iowa, a pretty significant amount of CAPE out there. And then you also have CAPE values getting close to southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and then portions of Michigan as well. You see that instability really starting to take shape across much of this area. And really the models are in good agreement about that. Instability is starting to form. The HRW definitely is not in agreement with regards to the instability that is forming. It does still show instability, but a much lighter amount of instability. GFS also showing that instability gradient, not as strong as the RFS by any measure, but still present across portions of southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, portions of Michigan included in that as well. So again, that's surface-based CAPE instability measurement in the atmosphere. Here's your storm relativity at 4 p.m. The NAM3 CAPE puts out a bit more of an intense amount of SRH, which is not too uncommon for the NAM to do. But at the same time, the RFS kind of gives a better picture of the storm relativity again. You're not really dealing, based on this RFS run, the frontal boundary is a little bit further to the north, so the SRH is not really as strong in this area down here, but it does show by the time we get to 7 p.m. the SRH increasing across much of this region, which will contribute to more spin in the atmosphere and the possibility for more rotating storms with that as well. So things to watch out for. And then here we'll take a look at the hodographs that are kind of shown here too. Again, a good hodograph, probably the best hodograph that I'm seeing here on this model run right here for 4 p.m. based on the NAM3K is right here. You've got a nice low level curvature right there. Actually, you know what? Let's pull that up. So what the hodograph represents is basically the direction of wind changing with height, and you can kind of see this curvature here present with this hodograph. And what that means is that your air is turning as it goes from the 0 to the 1 kilometer level in the atmosphere. So that increase of wind speeds and that change in the direction of the winds contributes to greater tornado potential. So a stronger curvature contributes to the stronger potential for tornadoes. This is actually a pretty decent sounding out in this region. You do have directional shear present, and again, indicated by that hodograph as well. Low cloud bases, good cloud tops. You've got CAPE values around 3,500, and you got SRH above that minimum value we would expect for the possibility of a tornado. So a lot of things to look at with regards to sounding, but still, there are resources. I think I posted one on Facebook earlier that helps you understand what these soundings mean. And again, soundings at the same time, though they are useful, they do not provide an exact determination right away of what exactly is going to happen. That happens when the event is ongoing, but it uses a series of algorithms, comes together, and comes up with a possible solution for these storms, which is why we can forecast them. So that's kind of what this whole thing is dealing with. So again, model comparison with regards to this is pretty reasonable. The HRW does put out some better curvatured hodographs, especially this one in Western Illinois. But again, we'll have to wait to see how these models change and how they evolve over the next couple of days. They're likely going to start to see some differences with regards to this setup. I'm going to take a look at the NAM real quick, and we're going to do a forecast loop for Sunday, because Sunday has started to creep in on the latest models with regards to a setup for severe weather right here. This is 4 p.m. on Sunday. You can see the curvature in the hodograph. We're going to get sounding over Kalamazoo. Marginal tornado potential, you do have CAPE values around 3,000 and temperatures in the 70s, dew points in the mid-60s, so it's not a terrible sounding, but again, your SRH is starting to show up as pretty low on the NAM as well. Could have some damaging winds and hail with some storms that do fire across portions of lower Michigan if the NAM does follow through with exactly what is being forecasted. Hodographs do seem to improve with the instability. later on associated with the warm front that could settle over this region, and the better sounding actually does kind of show up with this region just northwest of Toledo. So again, that's something to just put on the radar for a little bit. Right now we're focusing on Saturday. Planned chase areas, there's 2 planned chase areas that I'm keeping track on. The first one being the potential for tornadoes across portions of the warm frontal boundary. Could range anywhere from north of Mount Pleasant to south of the Mackinac Bridge. That is one area I'm considering. I am finding this area in northern Illinois a bit more appealing though, especially since there's higher instability, higher potential for those storms to break through that cap with higher instability, and greater storm relative helicity potentially with this as well. So northern Illinois is looking to be my primary target at this current moment, but this area further to the south where you're seeing this instability across portions of Michigan, Indiana, a storm might pop up out there, but the chances of that are pretty low. The storms are more likely to fire across regions such as northern Michigan and northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, mainly because you have a lifting mechanism working with you, a frontal boundary that will enable the initiation of these storms, and also the ability to break through that cap. So that's something that we're kind of watching out for with this setup. So that's pretty much all the information I have for you right now. I'm going to be chasing this on Saturday at some point. Make sure to subscribe and stay updated. I'll be providing updates over the next couple of days as we approach Sunday as well, since that's starting to show up on the NAM model. But still some things to look out for. Definitely going to change up to the point of the event, especially since what's happening out to the west is going to influence what happens on Saturday. So just stay tuned for updates with regards to that. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you all later.